Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Music Rating, Ranking, and Reviewing podcast we like to call Music Meltdown, in which we rate, rank, and review any artist's discography, songs, musical topics, really whatever comes to mind. This episode, we're going to be talking about a bit of a weird fucking band. 90s alt rock legends, Ween. Well known for talking about penises and being in SpongeBob, Ween really did whatever the hell they wanted to do. Just really adventurous, different styles across all of their records. And as such, they are really fucking hard to get into, I've noticed. I'll let the cat out of the bag now. I'm not the biggest fan of Ween. I have issues with 90% of their records, but on that same token, every album has at least a great song on it. They're one of those bands I want to like more than I do, but I still have plenty to enjoy with their catalog. Cam, how are you feeling about Ween going into this?
Yeah, first time listening to Ween was like probably when I was a kid, and not really like any of their big albums. Just one song, and you probably know which one. It's Ocean Man, because you know, ki growing up in North America in the 2000s, you had to watch SpongeBob. So I heard that song a lot, and then never thought about the band for the rest of my pretty much like until my adulthood, until like the past like year or two, where I listened to Quebec, and I was into that. And then I heard their country album. We'll get to that later. And then recently, hell yeah. And then recently I got into their whole discography. Pretty cool band. I think this is one of those bands where I think they get better as they go along. But for the most part, I enjoy this experience. A couple peaks, sorry, a couple valleys, but mostly peaks. And one of the more interesting bands from the 90s alt scene for sure. I don't know if I love them, but I enjoy them quite a bit. I respect their craft.
Nice. I'd echo that sentiment that I respect them a good bit, but I wouldn't say how much I really like them. Then we have Rupert.
Hey, yeah, so I'm actually, yeah, been a big Ween fan for a while. I came across them from the South Park Chef Aid soundtrack album, actually, way back in 1999 or 98. Um, uh, yeah, just remember the song Homo Rainbow and think that it's one of my favorites of the album, but not really following up on them until about 2007. And since then, I've been a big fan of theirs.
Nice, nice.
I knew all of their albums beforehand, but I did a re-listen front to back for this project.
Cool, cool.
Hmm.
Going into this, I knew two albums. I knew The Mollusk and I knew Chocolate and Cheese. So everything else was pretty new to me going into this. That being said, I'm going to kick it off as we've presumed I'm the lowest on Ween here, so that'll be fun. I feel like the bottom, this should be obvious to me. We'll see if you follow. I'm going with the sophomore release, The Pod. I'm going to keep it rather short and sweet because I feel much the same about the debut, which I'm going to talk about next. It's just all over the place without much holding the songs together. Fails to grip me in, and on the whole, there's nothing that I really love here. Outside of one track, which could be my favorite Ween song in general, being Pork Roll, Egg and Cheese, I think that song is just outstanding. It's so catchy, it's so memorable. It's got this almost like Belle and Sebastian sort of indie pop quality to it. I love it to death. But past that, I think this record is just too long. It's too all over the place, and rarely does it come together to have like a truly standout song. Except for that, I'm at a pretty low 2.5 stars for that for the pod, a number nine.
Interesting. I don't disagree, but I have the pod like a point higher from this one, which is 1990s. Well, recorded in '89, released a year later. GodWeenSatan, the Oneness. Um, I don't like this that much. It's kind of a fucking mess. It's there's some fun stuff on here for sure. Let me pull up the track list real quick. There we go. I enjoyed Tick. Tick's pretty funny. And Don't Laugh, I Love You is good as well. And I actually like Nicole. Nicole's fucking insanely long for whatever reason, but I kind of dig it. The rest, eh. They apparently they wrote this when they were like teenagers, like 14, 16, which yeah, you can tell because the lyrics are pretty crass. The playing is very rough, not very refined, which is fine, but not like it's unrefined, but not in a very interesting way. Just kind of like, oh, we're just gonna go nuts on this because we're an upcoming '90s alt band. We don't know what the hell we're doing yet, which not uncommon at the time, but I kind of wish was just a sound a bit nicer. And yeah, it's like a 4 out of 10 for me. It's growing pains. It's their first album. You can't really be too hard on them. They wrote them when they were like barely when they were still in high school, at least according to the Wikipedia article, which it's probably all made up. But regardless, it's fine. Actually, it's not fine. It's not great. But you know what? It's a step in the it's a stepping stone. It's not the worst debut I've ever heard. Um, that'll probably go to Genesis, but that's a different story altogether. But yeah, 4 out of 10. Not very exciting, too long, too messy, but there's still some decent songs on here, but just not a lot. And yep, that's GodWeenSatan, the oneness.
Oh, yeah, the messiness is probably one of the things I love most about it.
Ooh,
But for my ninth, yeah, my last place album is the actual last album. It's La Cucaracha. So it's the album they bow out with, and it's not very good. It sounds pretty loveless and tired, like they're not like they're fed up. There's only like a couple of highlights on it for me. Um, I think Friends is kind of nice bouncy disco near the start, but it's pretty like unenjoyable for the majority of the first half. Towards the end are the better tracks. Woman and Man is a nice, really extended Santana rock out, about 10 minutes long. Something they don't usually do. That's like kind of a highlight. And the final track, Your Party's got a nice David Bowie / yacht rock, Al Stewart kind of tinge to the vocal. That's a nice song to bow out on, but most of the album's really like below par for the group. It's easily their worst album. Below average for them. I would put it in the 2.5 category.
interesting.
Yep. That one's going to show up pretty soon for me, but I'm going to have to stick to what I said earlier. Number 8 for me is going to be GodWeenSatan. I definitely get why somebody would like this record. To me, it's a bit of a mess. There's a lot of jamming and different styles across the board, with very few strong melodies or hooks to be found across it. I don't think either Dean Ween or Gene Ween are great singers or writers at this point, and it really does overall hurt the project. And the biggest flaw here is the length. For this album being over an hour long, it just never feels like it has any focus to it. There are some great tracks on it, however. Up on the Hill, Stacy, Birthday Boy, and Squelch the Weasel were all my favorites, but this album just feels rather scatterbrained and directionless. It reminds me of very early Beck, but with more interesting overall songs. I'm at 2.5 stars for it, although I do understand why somebody would enjoy it. Number 8, GodWeenSatan.
Yeah, pretty apt comparison to that Beck album. We were just talking about that earlier, but I would argue that Beck album is like the actual Satan on like GodWeenSatan. But anyway, shitty joke aside, my number 8 is The Pod from 1991. Kind of the same problem as their debut, a little messy, a little too long, like 23 songs. Like come on, bro. You're not Dream Theater. You're better. But it's a bit more interesting. Was more of a unique sound that that'll be more familiar sounding as you go along. It's not quite there yet. It's not chocolate and cheese or Quebec yet, but you know what? It's getting there. My favorite songs on here. Let's pull up the track list again because I never prepared for this. I like the Stallion duology, part 1 and 2. I think those are fun. Dr. Rock is also quite good. I think it's like the second, third most popular song on here, aside from, judging by Spotify. Frank I dig as well. And Yeah, Stallion Part 2 is good, like I mentioned. I also rather enjoy pork roll, egg, and cheese, but you know, it's all right, nothing too exciting. And She Fucks Me is pretty funny, but you know, it's crass Ween, so you can't really hate on it too much. Even though even at their most juvenile, it's pretty funny. Not a lot to say, a bit more bloated than I'd like, but it's a bit more interesting than their debut and a sign of better things to come, I think. So I'm gonna give this 5 out of 10. It's all right.
Cool. Yeah, my eighth album, second last place, is their 1996 Salvo, 12 Golden Country Greats. For me, it's got a couple of highlights. It's of a genre that I don't especially like too much. I'm not really a big country fan. But Piss Up a Rope is a certified banger. It's easily in my top 10. Um, the playing's really great, but the it's too stylistically like committed to country, and often in a kind of jokey way. Songs kind of get old, like the joke gets old pretty quickly. There's only several real highlights for me. I think the humor's really crass on this, so that's good. But the songs are just too generic. Mr. Richard Smoker towards the end is pretty fun. It's a kind of like hot ragtimey piece with questionable lyrics. Back end is a little stronger, but it's actually way too short. It's just over half an hour. It's definitely one of the less substantial records they've done. And yeah, overall, not enough highlights for me. So firm eighth place, about three, really, really just a smidge above 3 stars for me.
All right. I'm going to be at 3 stars for a little bit here now. Next up for me, I have the final release, La Cucaracha. This is another weird record, almost like Ween are kind of a weird band. This one seems to have a bigger focus on more Hispanic sounds and instrumentation, which often led to a pretty interesting soundscape across it. There are some weird pitch shifting vocals across the record that just sound awful, though, I feel like. And like most of their other releases, it's very all over the place. And because of that, I feel kind of tossed around. And like I like some songs, but I don't really like some other songs. Songs like Fiesta, The Fruit Man, Sweetheart in the Summer, and especially Lullaby, bringing it up to 3 stars. I think it's a pretty decent record, but definitely not one of their highlights. So number 7, La Cucaracha.
Okay, good choices, y'all. I'm with Adria on this one. Mine is also La Cucaracha, their last album, I guess, from 2007. Um, I actually enjoy this one. This is like a more of a 7 for me. Nothing great, but you know what? It's not bad. Didn't love it. Didn't love the start. Unlike Rupert, Fiesta was kind of a jarring experience for me. It picked up when Blue Balloon came on. I like that song quite a bit, and Friends as well. Object, I barely remember off the top of my head, and With My Own Bare Hands is pretty fun, and Woman and Man also like crazy long song, but I agree with Rupert. It's pretty good, and I'm surprised they didn't like do like a prog thing. If they probably they would have done that as a joke for sure. I'm surprised they didn't do that, but I guess they're kind of over music at this point. And it ends pretty strong too with Your Party. Very interesting song. An otherwise pretty standard record. You'd think it'd be more interesting with their clear Hispanic soundscape influences, but I don't think they go hard enough on it. I wish they did. I don't know how it would turn out considering it's Ween, but you know, it probably at least entertaining at like at its worst. But yeah, this is like a 7, like I said, conveniently also at my 7th spot. Pretty good, nothing great, nothing terrible, but you know, it's not top tier Ween for me, but I enjoy it for what it is. It's all right. It's a 7 out of 10, and that is La Cucaracha.
Cool. All right. My seventh place is the Pod, which I think is really, really distinct kind of sound. So really unique album for the group. But it's way, way over long. There's some real highlights towards the very start. like Strap on My Jammy Pack is such a like strange alien song with that kind of low vocals. It weirds me out massively. And Dr. Rock is just a slamming like energetic track. But the middle of the album is just a bit too like fuzzed out and slow. And it's so long, it's almost 80 minutes, like it's maxed out with like complete like lethargy. You have to wait until like the back half for kind of the melodic highlights. I think Mononucleosis is a kind of like sweet ballad. Pork roll, egg and cheese is a nice pop gem right at the end. You get a nice dreamy like Polo Asado shoegazy piece with like a chicken like restaurant order read over the top. So like lots of random insanity. But it's just way too sludgy and overlong for my preferences. So even though it's got like the right sound, it doesn't have enough songs, enough of my favorite songs for me, but very kind of unique soundscape. So 3.5 stars. Yeah, some highlights.
Alrighty. Next up for me, I got Pure Guava. This is by far my favorite of the first 3 records, but I still don't really like it that much. 3 stars. It does seem like the band's finally coming together. It's a bit less aimless, and it seems like they're starting to better utilize the humor within their sound. Songs are sharper and feel like they develop far more as well. There's just still too many, and at best, they're very hooky, fun, and memorable. At worst, it's a slightly more refined version of the first 2 records. Solid, the band still has a ways to go before they truly hit greatness. Only at 3 stars for it. I think it's decent, but they've got better. So, number 6, Pure Guava, 3 stars.
Wow, we're matching up pretty good so far. Yeah, my number 6 is also Pure Guava. Definitely my favorite of their early, like super early 90s output. Well, aside from another one, but we'll get to that a lot later. Yeah, it's a bit more refined. There's stronger songwriting on here. There's an ending to the Stallion trilogy started on the pod, conveniently called The Stallion Part 3. I like that song quite a bit. I actually kind of just like this album overall. Has a better sound, more interesting production, and just like more bangers overall. Like, you know, The Stallion, like I said, Push the Little Daisies, which was one of their, I think their first big hit, really, if I remember correctly. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think it was like one of their first MTV hits.
Right, okay. Yeah, that song is pretty fucking dope. I like Big Jilm as well, which is allegedly, according to the Wikipedia, it's based on one of their dad's friends who owned a car shop. Oh, it was based on Dean's Ween's father's car dealership, which is pretty fun. I like stuff like that. The rest, you know, you can give or take a lot of it, but overall, I enjoyed most of it. It's about a 7.5 out of 10 for me, close to an 8. It's just it's solid 90s alt noise type stuff. Not primo Ween for me. That's should be my catchphrase at this point. But you know what? It's all right. 7.5 out of 10. Definitely the best of their first 3, at least in my opinion. Pure Guava from 92. Good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, so my top 6 is actually really contentious in that they're kind of really evenly matched. I kind of big fan of them all the same. So 6th place took a bit of judging. But my 6th place album is probably going to be White Pepper from 2000. I think compared to the lower 3, this one is firmly in an upper tier. It's much nicer sounding, very tight, just around 40 minutes. A good collection of songs with some good highlights. A much more kind of fluffier, warmer pop psychedelia sound. The intro, exactly where I'm at, is just a lovely intro. Kind of nice, dreamy kind of quality. And Even If You Don't is one of the first few songs that made me a big fan of the group. Its video stars Matt Stone and Trey Park from South Park. They cameo in the video. Yeah, it's worth checking out. You've got just like some nice, really pretty songs like Stay Forever, which has got a mellow gold FM feel. I think compared to my like top 5, it doesn't hold together as much as an album. So even though there's less random like stupidness compared to the first few records, for some reason like like songs don't hang together as a memorable like from start to finish as much as the very best ones do. So it's mainly an album of highlights, but a much more improved kind of studio sound. It's kind of like middle in the pack. Yeah, middle of the pack for me. So yeah, I'd say 3.5 stars.
All right.
Okay.
Next up for me, I have 12 Golden Country Greats. Shouts to Clay, gives us a 10 out of 10. Fucking crazy, man. This is another record I struggle with, and it really just boils down to me not understanding what this record is even trying to be. Is this like meant to be a real, authentic attempt at making country music? Is this meant to be a pastiche? Like, what? I don't understand their goal here with this record. And typically that doesn't really affect anything. But I found myself struggling to really be drawn into the songs and properly sort of understand how to even write the album because I simply just didn't understand if I was meant to be taking it seriously or not. Um, Past that though, the arrangements are really nice. They're lush. They're ornate. They're really well put together. It's shockingly like natural and really um respectful of like late 60s, early 70s sort of like orchestrated country music, which is really fucking weird because the best song on this record is called Piss Up a Rope, which is a classic, but it's like you have this nice, beautiful, lush instrumentation, and he's like, piss up a rope. Love it. Honestly, there were some points where it was like overly orchestrated to me. It's on the borderline of 3.5, but it's like just the natural disconnect I have with the record leaves it at 3. I got one more 3 stars after this, so we're almost out of 3 territory for me. I think that was 5, 12 Golden Country Greats.
Interesting. Y'all are gonna hate where I put 12 country greats, but we'll get to that soon. And interesting mention about Trey Parker and the other guy from South Park, Matt Stone. Matt Stone. There's one song Ween did, one of the early ones. I forgot the name of it, but it sounds like either one of the singers is doing a Eric Cartman impression, or they got the guys from South Park to actually do that voice. I'm not too sure. I forgot which
No,
album.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, Push the Little Daisies. Always think exactly.
That's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
Cartman in the middle, and a lot of the other songs kind of remind me of like other characters like Kyle and Stan.
Yeah, that song was escaping me at the moment. I don't know why, but yeah, I never realized like there was a connection. But when I heard that song, I was like, "Oh, I wonder if they did like anything with those guys from South Park." And turns out they did. So good stuff. My next favorite, 5 onward, pretty damn good. No complaints. This one included in that. It's White Pepper from 2000. Yep, 2000. This one's just really, really freaking good. Definitely not a lot to complain about. Starts off strong, exactly where I'm at. It's a great song. Fun fact, this was actually played on the Letterman show like 100 years ago. That's pretty good. Flutes of Cheese, really cool. Very interesting sound. And Bananas and Blow, it's a classic. It's classic Ween. It's so good, they made it a title for one of their compilation records from 2007, I believe. Stroker Race is good. I love Back to Basom or Basom. Not too sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. And The Grove as well. Just overall really strong record. Songwriting's a lot better than their 90s output. Well, early 90s output. The production's really good. Like the sound quality is like just the way it sounds and how it sounds is super cool. Like very just very interesting for what even by Ween standards, I'm like, oh, this is neat. It's just really good, but I don't have too much to say about it. I just didn't really dislike it that much. There's a couple songs where I'm like, yeah, okay. They're kind of just spinning their wheels. But for the most part, White Pepper is pretty solid. I'll have to give this a 8 out of 10, maybe 8.5, just really strong. My favorite song on here is Bananas and Blow. But I think the coolest thing about it, in my opinion, is just the production. It's just super cool, which will be a theme going forward with a lot of these, a lot of my like favorite Ween records. They just sound so cool, even if the lyrics or songwriting just like goofy and crass. Like overall, like their song just sound great moving forward. So yeah, 8.8, 8.5 out of 10. Good shit. Good shit.
Cool. So yeah, my fifth place album is going to be maybe a little contentious. It's going to be Chocolate and Cheese. It's I'd say the most classic album, but it's an album where I'm not really a terrible fan of half the songs, and I think quite a few of them are a little overrated. I've never been a big fan of the intro track, Take Me Away. It just sounds like a very pastiche blues rock. I can barely tell if it's Ween, to be honest. Big fan of Spinal Meningitis. It's just really kind of peculiar, creepy. I actually think like Freedom of 76 is a little overrated because it is just straight up soul pastiche. I don't feel too much soul from it. A Tear for Eddie's a nice tribute to Eddie Hazel from Funkadelic, but I don't think it's a particularly standout composition. It's pretty like ordinary in my opinion. I wish I would feel more soul from it. It's got kind of more like it's really diverse, so it's got lots of pastiches of like a country and western. Buenas Tardes Amigo is a huge long epic track. I'm just not a fan of. Just sounds quite like they hammer kind of one joke throughout the whole song of the kind of Mexican voice. HIV song's just absolute like dreck. It's just horrible to listen to. Along with Candy, which is one of their like metronome tracks, which I wish they wouldn't put on their albums. There are like some like standout classic songs on here, like Voodoo Lady, which I've always loved. Can't put my finger on it. It's got that nice like Middle Eastern vibe to it, and I love the kind of like sparse middle eight section to it on the guitar. Mr. Would You Please Help My Ponies? Nice kind of eerie power pop. And what Dina was talking about is like straight up power pop anthem. Yeah, probably my favorite track on that one. It's got its moments, but I think it's a bit like it is like Chocolate and Cheese. It's a mix of genius and overrated. 3.5 territory for me, bit very mixed bag, but probably like a classic. Yeah, undeniably a classic record of theirs. I'm just not on my top 4.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I get that.
This is where I piss off some Ween fans. My number 4 is Quebec. This album was also just really tricky for me. I want to like it a lot more, but similar to how Rupert was talking about Chocolate and Cheese, there's just a lot across here that I simply didn't care for, with the crowning jewel of that being the dreadful Fucked Jam, which I hated. And Alcan Road was also just fine. But the other ones that I like on here are really strong. I thought Zoloft was really good. I adore the track Chocolate Town. And the closing 2 tracks, The Argist and If You Could Save Yourself, are up there among the band's best. The issue, so much of this record just doesn't land for me. It's probably, even in a catalog as diverse as Ween's is, I would probably say this is their most stylistically diverse record. And just the majority of the time, it didn't land for me. I have oodles of respect and like admire what they're going for. I just don't like it a lot of the time. It just doesn't pull me in, and it pulls me out of the record more often than not. I still do think there are great songs on here, which elevate it up to my number 4. I'm still only at 3 stars though for Quebec, number 4.
Golly. Okay. Um, 3 stars for Quebec is insane, but I get that. You're not really a fan of this material anyway. But I'm probably gonna piss off even more people because not only am I gonna piss off Ween fans, I might piss off like Adri as well. My number 4 is the Mollusk from 1997. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. This album's great. Not a lot to complain about. I'm not a fan of the opening track. Was it I'm Dancing in the Show Tonight? Which, to be fair, it's like a dumb 2-minute thing to get you interested, but didn't do it for me. It does pick up though. I love the title track, the polka dot tail, the Blarney Stone Sick. I love It's Gonna Be All Right. And do we have to talk about the song Ocean Man? Like, come on, it's perfect. It's like the perfect, goofball, like slacker rock kind of pop song. Oh God, I just killed Adri. I know she's looking for something. Never mind. Um, this album's, I guess that whole song in general, but this album's kind of a claim to fame is Ocean Man being on SpongeBob, and even putting that aside, just a fun song. Like you can't really hate it. It's like it's like silly, but also like heartwarming and kind of like genuine in a way. It's neat. And oh, fun fact about this album, uh, the cover was designed by Storm Thorgerson. Thorgerson, who, if you don't know, did a bunch of Pink Floyd album covers, including Dark Side of the Moon. But yeah, this album's great. The production's solid. I love the kind of Islander rock type sound it's going for. It just, a couple of songs I'm like, whatever, they're fine. But the songs that do hit, I think hit quite well. Um, oh God, I'll probably give this like a 8.5 as well. Like it's like a very strong 8.5. It's really good. Not a lot to complain about, but a couple songs just didn't do it for me. Wave My Dick in the Wind's kind of a little too stupid for me. And Mutilated Lips was all right, but I didn't care for it that much. But I like a good chunk of it. It's just, doesn't hit. It didn't hit me as much as I thought it would, but it is really damn good though. And it's number 4. I think Adri's placement of Quebec is more egregious than the Mollusk, but I don't know. I'm kind of speaking from bias.
Heavens, so.
It's good. Our ratings berserk. All right, so my number 4 is their debut album, GodWeenSatan, which I think it was quite a while ago that it was mentioned by both of you. But yeah, I've always been really fond of this debut album. For me, it's everything that's fun about the group. It's just so like bubbly and just like energetic. And I think the first phase of the album, the first half hour, is just blistering. The intro You Fucked Up is maybe their quintessential song. One of my top 10. It's over and out within like 90 seconds. It's so heavy and so intense. And then it just like blisters through like a quick succession of like 1-minute songs, full of energy. I think like it's just like lots of really catchy, like easy ditties that they come up with. But because they have so much fun doing it, and even though it's so lo-fi, the kind of like enthusiasm behind it is infectious. I think Nicole, the first really long track, is a nice kind of like change up. Suddenly, like the pace kind of like relaxes a bit. But after that, like the second half of the album does get really patchy, and I find that re-listening to their debut, I'm less keen to listen to it like from beginning to end. It becomes like quite apparent on re-listens that it's really inconsistent work that doesn't quite hold a candle to their later, more mature ones. But there are some different highlights, like "Don't Laugh, I Love You," where it's one of their sweetest songs, one of my favorites, and he actually sings the guitar solo, which is just the cutest thing. Towards the end, "Birthday Boy," which is, I think, like samples a little bit of Pink Floyd echoes, is also another like supreme highlight for me. Just really, after all the like silliness and like crassness earlier on, it's a completely straight-laced, serious ballad. It's like really grungy as well, incredibly lo-fi. I love the chaos and messiness of the album. Um, but it's something that's maybe come down for me a bit. It used to place a bit higher for me. It's now fourth place, so not even bronze. But still loads to enjoy still. Fourth place, 3.5.
Okay.
All right. This might be a bit interesting because I've seen people put this a lot lower on their lists, but it's by far probably their most accessible record. For me, I have at number 3, White Pepper. This is another really tricky one to assess because I really like a lot of it, but there is an entire stretch in the middle that I think is just pretty mediocre. Bananas and Blow is all right. I didn't like Stroke or Ace at all. And cuts such as Ice Castles as well as Back to Blossom are just all right. Although the rest of the songs on the record are just all aces. Comes out with a great strong with Exactly Where I'm At and Flutes of Chi. But the ending couple of tracks elevated up to 3.5. I'm at a good record here. Stay Forever and Falling Out are just incredible songs. And the ones that surround it as well are pretty good. It's tough. It's a low 3.5. It's on the borderline of 3. But those top songs are just so good that I give them 3.5. 3 good Ween records. Adding a third a good record. So I'm cool with that. Number 3, White Pepper.
We did it. 3 good Ween records. Woo! All right, this placement is probably gonna annoy a lot of you or impress some of you or just befuddle a lot of you. It's gonna be one of those 3. My number 3 is 1990. What year was this? 1996's 10-song banger, 12 Golden Country Greats. I can't really discuss this objectively. I'm a big fan of older country music. Waylon, Hank Williams, Marty, that kind of thing. And this album just kind of hit that sweet spot for me. It just like how genuine it sounds. Like it's clearly kind of tongue in cheek a little bit. Like, come on, piss up a rope, like Jesus. But it also sounds like a country record. Like it's not too satirical. It's definitely genuine. You can tell it comes from like a place of love. You can tell Dean Ween and the other guy were clearly big fans of country music, or at least they were for a time. And it kind of shows here. Opens up strong with I'm Holding You. Japanese Cowboy is okay. And of course, Piss Up a Rope. Like, come on. The lyrics are absolutely unhinged and insane. And to be quite honest, not too dissimilar from like the uber crass, like uber just like dirty, like kind of country music that was coming out like kind of around the time. And yeah, I just dig it. And plus, that guitar works great. There's lots of this like fantastic country guitar work. Like it's not even like that hammy aside from one part in Piss Up a Rope where they're clearly just taking the piss, as Rupert would say, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, Piss Up a Rope's dope. Leave You on the Farm is also great. I love Pretty Girl. Pretty Girl's awesome. Mr. Richard Smoker, it's okay. Help Me Scrape the Mucus Off My Brain. Crazy ass title aside, this goes hard. And it ends with the song Fluffy about a dog, which is kind of one of their more like sillier tracks, but it's neat. I dig it. Uh, I'm pretty biased towards this because it's got that old country sound that I love oh so much. But just even that aside, it just sounds good. Production's solid, the playing's solid. They clearly have heard a lot of country in their times, as you can tell by the songwriting. Even at their goofiest, you can tell they know what they're about. And yeah, I'm probably gonna give this an 8.5 again. I feel like if I put it any higher, I'm probably gonna get fucking shot. But it's so fun. Like you can't even hate it. And that's my number 3. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it.
Fair enough.
All right, yeah, my number 3 is their 2003 album, Quebec. Really solid record from front to back, with some definite standout songs. The opener, It's Gonna Be a Long Night, is such a dead-on Motorhead impression. I almost actually prefer it to Motorhead. It's just, yeah, banging. Soloft is really trippy, with those kind of squeaky vocals in the middle where he's doped up. And Transdermal Celebration has always been one of my favorite tracks. It's just completely anthemic, just like surging. Great kind of free part opener to the album. Yeah, Among His Tribe. I'd say the first 5 tracks are really solid. Tried and True, which I saw was like one of the most streamed tracks, I find a bit ordinary, to be honest. Captain is kind of a bit of a smear. Chocolate Town is just a lovely kind of countrified bit of pop, one of the standouts for me. And I Don't Want It is really like yearning and tender. I get a kind of like Fleetwood Mac, Lindsey Buckingham vibe with the solo, and Steve, yeah, kind of like a nice quivery delivery with the vocals, very tender song. I was disappointed with the end of the record. I do think it lags in the final few songs in terms of energy. Fewer highlights for me. Overall, it's pretty solid. In terms of style, it's the most diverse and really well recorded, really good quality music. Like the last few songs don't capture my imagination as much, but they're kind of still fairly solid. It's a really good quality album overall, with 2 definite standouts for me in terms of Chocolate Town and Transdermal Celebration. 4 stars.
Hell yeah.
Nice, nice. I am still not up to 4 stars of my number 2, which is Chocolate and Cheese. It's pretty clearly the best Ween record up to this point, though. You keep the eclecticism and the energy, but mix it with far better songwriting and production. The only issue is just the issue I have fundamentally with Ween, which is these guys don't know how to fucking sit down. It's filled with all these different styles and soundscapes, and while they do them well, I just don't love them. Despite that, Freedom of 76, Roses Are Free, and What Diener Was Talking About are all just great songs. With how varied it is, there's some cuts that I'm not going to be as into, and the record can run a bit long. But overall, it's a pretty good record, bordering very good. It is a strong 3.5 stars for Chocolate and Cheese.
Yeah, bordering very good is an understatement, but you know, you're pretty on the money there. My number 2, we're at number 2. Yeah, we're number 2. Yeah, it's Quebec. Used to be my number 1 until, you know, I heard more. But anyway, yeah, this is the first Ween album I ever heard in full. I'll admit I was not was a little out of it when I heard it. I was it felt kind of like I was kind of drifting through it, but also like kind of picked up on what it was putting down. I don't know what I'm saying here, but when I first heard it, it kind of just like knocked my socks off because I didn't know Ween was gonna sound like this. Because the one thing I heard before this was Ocean Man, and I just never just thought about what they would sound like ever until I heard this. And when I put it on, I think like a year ago at this point, maybe like 8 months ago, I was like, wow, this is what they sound like? Awesome. And it turns out I would mostly be wrong because they sound different on every album, which is fine. Starts off very strong with It's Gonna Be a Long Night. Probably one of the better Ween openers, to be honest, at least in my opinion. Then you get the Zoloft, good stuff. Transdermal Celebration, also really good. And Tried and True, which is a fantastic song as well. Most of these are fantastic. I love the production. I love their playing. I just love the kind of the focused, eclectic style. Like they're clearly trying a lot of things with the sound and the like playing and whatnot. But you can tell they're way more you know, like in the zone than they were like in 92 or, you know, when they were really getting started. It's definitely one of the strongest albums of that year. which was 2003. And fun fact, not really a fact about the album in particular, more about me. I thought these guys were Canadian for the longest time, mostly because of this album. And then I looked it up, and they're from the States. And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, that stupid aside, well, aside, it's a fantastic record. Uh, Probably if people said this is their favorite, I couldn't really argue because it just sounds this good. I mean, come on, how can you beat such quality tracks like Zoloft and whatnot? But yeah, this is like a solid 9 for me. There's never been, I don't know, I'm not too sure. I want to put this a lot higher. I mean, I think I'm already putting it high enough as it is, but I want to give it like a near perfect score some days, but some songs I'm like, they're okay. But when it hits, it's like some of the best alt you'll ever hear from this period. But yeah, dick riding aside, it's a pretty nice record, and you should hear it if you haven't. And it's my number 2.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. One thing more I want to say about like Quebec is that normally Ween have several very bad songs in each album, but the kind of bad songs on Quebec um, are like Happy Colored Marbles, um, which start off like, oh, it's just another annoying toss off track, actually develop in quite like nice, interesting experimental ways. And the fuck jam, for some reason, I kind of enjoyed it because it like deliberately tests your patience, but it does it in a like really much more effective way than say a song like Candy and Blackjack, which just stay the same throughout. It just like really tests your patience with the longer pauses. So I actually enjoy those tracks more than like the tracks like Argus, which are just too generically proggy. Anyway, my number 2 album is Pure Guava, their third album. Technically their high like major label debut, but it sounds lo-fi, just like their first 2. But it's instead of being like really massively overlong, it's a much tighter 55 minutes. It's kind of got that classic early Brown sound of theirs, but it's got like 2 genuine all-time favorite tracks of mine in Push the Little Daisies, which is besides Homo Rainbow from the 90s, is the track that really tuned me onto the band, just with the like zany video. And Don't Get Too Close to My Fantasy, which is just like such a like banging anthem of theirs, in the style of David Bowie, 70s like Ziggy Stardust style David Bowie. And there's just like lots of nice little underrated tracks throughout that sound kind of like grungy and murky. And there's one like notable track on it called Morning Glory, which is just this nightmarish extended piece, which is really foggy sounding, where he's talking about being lost in the pumpkin patch. Just one of the more bizarre but memorable tracks. Yeah, lots of pop nuggets, and just the fact that it contains 2 of my favorite songs. It's second place for me, Pure Guava. Still 4-star territory, but higher than Quebec, like 4.25 territory.
I was trying to think in my head what you still had, because I knew that you had the Mollusk, but forgot about Pure Guava. Interesting, interesting. Glad to see it that high because it was definitely a step up from the first 2. But the number 1 Ween record, it's not even close. It is by far the number 1. It is the Mollusk. I used to like this album a little bit more than I do. I still think it's really great. However, this album is just fantastic. Ween are fun, they're weird, but this album is by far their most sort of grounded. It has a sort of aquatic, almost sea shanty element to it at points. It really kind of feels like you're out at sea, like a pirate or something throughout it, because that sort of pastiche does run through the whole record. In its best moments, the album is incredibly catchy, it's incredibly memorable. Probably the best example of which being their big hit, Ocean Man. But other than that, songs like Mutilated Lips, The Golden Eel, Buckingham Green, and She Wanted to Leave are all outstanding. This album's a great gateway into Ween. It's just weird enough to where it will keep you intrigued, but it's not going to draw you out from the sound. It has a uniform sound to where it's not going to go drag you all over the place and make you get a bit conflicted about it. Overall, it is them at their most distilled, most sort of thought out, and just they're brilliant. This album is fantastic. I love it a lot. I am at 4.5 stars for the Mollusk. Completely skipping over 4 because I think that this record far exceeds the rest of the catalog. So number 1, the Mollusk. Love it.
I'll take it. I'm just glad you have a Ween album above like a 3. We take those. Yeah, my number 1, Process of Elimination, is 1994's Chocolate and Cheese. Yeah, it's so much fun. You can't even complain. Take Me Away, not my favorite opener, but it's all right. I love Spinal Meningitis, got me down, and Freedom of 76 as well. Those are really good songs. Production's solid. Their playing's a lot better than their earlier stuff, and the songwriting is a bit more entertaining. Especially my favorite song on here, and probably my favorite Ween song, period, which might drive some of y'all crazy. It's actually Drifter in the Dark. It's just such a nice vibe. It's kind of slow and a bit kind of goofy sounding with the vocals because the singer's doing that, that kind of low baritone kind of thing. But I really dig it, and it kind of takes you away a little bit. Just kind of makes you forget about your troubles. Kind of lets you like slump down in your chair a little bit in relaxation. It's good stuff. And Mr. Would You Please Help My Pony is interesting. I dig I dig that funky beat quite a bit. The HIV song, some of us don't like. I kind of like it. I think it's fun. Mostly the sound. The lyrics it's a Ween song, so the lyrics are kind of fucking bizarre, but you can't really hate on it too much. It's Ween, like that. That's just how they write. And ends pretty good with "Don't shit where you eat." But yeah, just overall, I think it's like just really solid. The production's great. Their playing's more confident. They're more focused. The lyrics are better than they were before, in my opinion. Even though a lot of it's still like there's like insane nonsense. Like it's more charming than it used to be. And yeah, I do think they would get better, but subjectively speaking, I just like Chocolate and Cheese the most. It just kind of it hits all the right beats for me. I'm not too sure why. This is like the weird 90s stuff that I enjoy. Kind of reminds me of it. Kind of gives you like a mellow gold type feel, or obviously different sounds, but just more interesting than you'd probably hear from the period, in my opinion. But yeah, this is like a solid 9.5 for me. I could see why people, would prefer like the Mollusk or Quebec. Obviously, those are great. Those are great times. I can't really hate on those too much. But I'm not. I don't know. Chocolate and Cheese. This is like my Ween record. This is me. Y'all can't have it. It's all mine. But yeah, that aside, it's really fun. It's my number 1.
That's fine. I just want to interject real quick. I know you prefer Mellow Gold, but I'm curious, which one would you take over it? Because we were talking before, because I drew some comparisons with like back in early Ween. Which record would you take, Odelay or Chocolate and Cheese?
Honestly, I think Chocolate and Cheese. If it was Mellow Gold, they'd be more contentious, but I like Chocolate and Cheese a lot more. But even though I love Odelay quite a bit.
Nice, nice.
That means, well, my number 1's obviously the Mollusk. Just if they have a masterpiece, it's going to be this one. From front to back, it's very tight conceptually. A magnificent sound throughout. I think it's the start of their. I think they kind of mastered the studio sounds in terms of like the country sound with 1996, but they do a definite step up with this one. It just sounds really evocative of the great 70s prog records. And I'm a big fan of the silly show tune intro. Just the kind of learning it on piano right now, actually, just really jolly. But yeah, straight into the second track, the Mollusk is just this really like kind of a kind of tingly kind of acoustic track. And Mutilated Lips is the first like real magical song for me because it's just so aquatic sounding, and just makes me feel like I'm like swimming underwater, with those strange vocals and really strange lyrics. Blarney Stone's just a great like sea shanty. There's lots of like random oddities that don't fit in with the Northological theme, like Waving My Dick in the Wind, which is I think an outtake from their 12 Golden Country Greats album, just completely randomly plonked in there, but somehow works. You've got like really sweet ballads like It's Gonna Be All Right, which just add a like serious like dimension to their sound, what can be quite a jokey record. There's not really any like clunkers on the album, like Your Candies or Blackjacks. There's almost some like I think Golden Eel, songs like that ilk are kind of the average ones. What really makes it number one for me is that the last 4 tracks just really build up to a like awesome climax. So starting with Waving My Dick in the Wind, which kind of boosts the energy up, you get songs like Buckingham Green, which is one of the most epic songs they've done with the timpani and guitar solo. Just really built it up. And then Ocean Man, maybe the signature song. I've never been a SpongeBob fan, so it's almost kind of off my radar how it's got so popular. But that's just like, yeah, really, really poppy. The last song on it, She Wanted to Leave, makes me really emotional. It's just so epic, such a great climax to the record. It's just their best sounding and tightest, and yeah, builds up fantastically. And it's been like a favorite of mine for a while. Sometimes I might want to mix up with the other records like Pure Guava. But on my most recent re-listen, actually this one stood out as the most highest quality one they've done. And even the guitarist Dean Ween agrees it is the one record he is actually happy with, and not discontent like his other records. And also the cover's great as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I honestly bump up to a 4.5. It's just a few tracks in the middle which aren't quite as inspired, like keep it from being perfect.
Yep, that's fair. It's 4.5 for me, but it's not really that close to 5. But for me, I think it's just by far their most consistent set of songwriting that they ever put to tape. That being said, though, anybody have any sort of closing thoughts on Ween, or do we think that we got the point across mostly?
Yeah, I think so. These boys are strange. They're an anomaly, but you know, they definitely they I don't know if they left a mark per se, but they're definitely a lot more interesting than a lot of bands from the time. And I can't really think of the alt rock noise whatever scene without them. They're pretty cool. I wish they did more, but I can see why they haven't done a lot in a while because like, you know, they did their thing.
Oh yeah. Well, alrighty.
Yeah, I mean, just they've always been like a favorite of mine. I went through a phase of being less on them, but yeah, on my most recent re-listen, they just stand up as one of the defining 90s, early noughties groups.
Mhm.
Maybe no like flat out masterpieces, but just as a band and for songs, they're very unique, and yeah, will always be one of my favorite artists.
Thanks. Next. Well, like I was saying, more so at the beginning, excuse me, they're a bit of a band that I want to like more than I do. 'Cause I think every record has at least one very good song. My main issue is just more often than not, I feel like it struggles to come together into a great creative project. However, still the Mollusk and the Mollusk is fantastic. So not much to complain about there. That being said, I really hope that you enjoyed this discussion upon Ween. Bit of a tricky band to discuss, but I feel like we got our points across. Very different points of views about the catalog as well. Being said, I hope that you enjoyed everything and you have a great one.